Order. Members, please stand for the prayer. Today, we ask members to pause for a moment of silent prayer and reflection. And following the silent prayer and reflection, please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. The Secretary will take the roll.
Senators Abler, Anderson B., Anderson P., Bach, Benson, Bigham, Carlson, Chamberlain, Champion, Clausen, Cohen, Swazinski, Dames, Dibble, Draheim, Dietzick, Eaton, Eichhorn, Eakin, Franzen, Frenz, Gazelka, Goggin, Hall, Herr, Hayden, Hoffman, Housley, Howe, Ingebrigtsen, Isaacson, Jasinski, Jensen, Johnson, Kent, Kiffmeyer, Klein, Coran, Lane, Lang, Latz, Limmer, Little, Marty, Matthews, Miller, Nelson, Newman, Newton, Osmic, Pappas, Pratt, Rarick, Ralph, Rest, Rosen, Rude, Senjum, Simonson, Sparks, Tomasoni, Torres, Ray, Utke, Weber, Westrom, Uyghur, Wickland.
A quorum is present. Pursuant to Rule 14.1, the following members intend to vote under Rule 40.7. Senators Carlson, Clausen, Eaton, Hall, Lane, Latz, Newton, Pappas, Rest, Senjum, Sparks, and Wickland. Members will begin on the Senate agenda today with the third order of business, messages from the House. The Secretary will read the message.
Mr. President, I have the honor to announce the passage by the House of the following House file herewith transmitted, House File Number 11, Patrick D. Murphy, Chief Clerk, House of Representatives.
There's no action required on that message. Moving to the fourth order of business, first reading of House bills. The House file listed in the agenda will be given its first reading and referred as indicated. Senator Gazelka.
Mr. President, I move that House File Number 11 be laid on the table.
On that motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. We will take a brief pause to gather the votes of the members in alternate locations.
What?
Receiving a sufficient number of aye votes, the motion prevails. Moving to the eighth order of business, introduction and first reading of Senate bills. Listed in today's Senate bill introductions are Senate file numbers 89 through 95. These Senate files are given their first reading and referred as indicated. Senator Gazelka.
Mr. President, I move that Senate File Number 89.
Senator Gazelka, hold on one moment, please.
Okay.
Senator Gazelka, disregard, change of plans there. The next order of business is Members, Senate File 89 will be referred to the Committee on Rules and Administration. Moving to the next order of business, motions and resolutions. We have a couple authors' motions listed in the agenda. We'll take these authors' motions as one motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed say no. We will take a brief pause to gather the votes of the members in alternate locations. Receiving a sufficient number of aye votes, the motion prevails. The Secretary will read Senate Resolution number 5.
Senator Gazelka introduces Senate Resolution number 5 relating to organization and operation of the Senate during this special session.
Senator Gazelka.
Mr. President, I move that Senate number 5 be adopted.
To that motion, Senator Gazelka.
Mr. President, this is the, in addition to the standing committees established by the 221st Special Session Senate Resolution number 1, the Committee on Capital Investment is established in the same manner with the same powers as in the 91st Legislature.
Any discussion on Senate Resolution number 5? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed say no. We will take a brief pause to gather the votes of the members in alternate locations. Receiving a sufficient number of aye votes, the motion prevails. Senator Gazelka.
Mr. President, I move that Senate File number 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 26, 27, 28, 29, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 62, and House File number 37 and 65 be taken from the table and given a second reading.
I feel like it's math class with my children. On that motion, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Again, we will take a brief pause to gather the votes of the members in alternate locations. Receiving a sufficient number of aye votes, the motion prevails. The Secretary will give the Senate file numbers their second reading.
Senate files numbers 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 26, 27, 28, 29, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 62, and House file numbers 37 and 65.
Second reading. Senator Gazelka.
Mr. President, I move that the bills read by the Secretary be laid on the table.
On that motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. We will again take a brief pause. Receiving a sufficient number of aye votes, the motion prevails. Senator Gazelka.
Mr. President, on behalf of Senator Senjat, I move that Senate file number 4 be taken from the table and re-referred to the Committee on Capital Investment.
Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Again, we'll take a brief pause to gather the votes of the members in alternate locations. Receiving a sufficient number of aye votes, the motion prevails. Senator Gazelka.
Mr. President, I move that Senate file number 15 be taken from the table.
On that motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. We'll take a brief pause.
Yeah, everything else is done, yeah. I know. Yep. Well, at least we can make our best guess.
Receiving a sufficient number of aye votes, the motion prevails. Senator Gazelka.
Mr. President, I move that an urgency be declared within the meaning of Article 4, Section 19 of the Constitution of Minnesota with respect to Senate file number 15, and that the rules of the Senate be so far suspended as to give Senate file number 15 its third reading and place it on final passage.
Discussion on that motion. Just a reminder, members, this motion does require 45 votes to prevail. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. We will take a brief pause to gather the votes of the members in alternate locations. Receiving the sufficient number of aye votes in order to prevail, the motion does prevail. We now have Senate File 15 in front of us. Senator Ruud.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. Members, we passed this bill off the floor of the Senate unanimously, and the bill was signed into law by Governor Walz several weeks ago. And the bill provided safety requirements for 16 and 17-year-olds in amusement parks. It was recently brought to our attention that the bill did not include an effective date that would accommodate amusement parks as they begin their summer hiring. So this bill addresses that oversight by amending the session law by specifying that the law's effective date is the day following enactment. It's simply a technical correction, members, and I'd appreciate your support.
Any discussion on Senate File 15? Senator Champion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am going to ask the members to support this change. What has been outlined and articulated by Senator Ruud is correct. This is to make sure that this piece of legislation can be enacted right away and therefore benefit the amusement parks who are in need of young people to work as well as the others. Thanks.
Any further discussion on the bill? The Secretary will give Senate File 15 its third reading.
Senate File number 15, a bill for an act relating to employment, making a technical change to an effective date allowing certain youth to operate amusement rides and lawn equipment.
Third reading. Members, any final discussion on the bill? We're on final passage of Senate File 15. Seeing no further discussion, the Secretary will take the roll. Members in the retiring room, please come to the chamber to vote.
Yeah.
Members in room 303, please come to the chamber to vote. And while they're on their way down, members in the President's office, please come to the chamber to vote. Members in room 323, please come to the chamber to vote. Members in room 237, please come to the chamber to vote. And members in room 206, please come to the chamber to vote.
They recessed or? Till when? We're trying to prolong the session until July 4th? What are they trying to do? What? Didn't do anything. Make sure you guys stay. Say what? Thank you.
I will now call on Senator Jasinski to report the votes of the members voting under Rule 40.7.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Hall votes aye.
Senator Hall votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Nelson votes aye.
Senator Nelson votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Senjum votes aye.
Senator Senjum votes aye. I will now call on Senator Kent to report the votes of the members voting under Rule 40.7. Senator Kent.
Thank you, Mr. President. I report aye for Senator Carlson.
Senator Carlson votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Clausen.
Senator Clausen votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Eaton.
Senator Eaton votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Lane.
Senator Lane votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Latz.
Senator Latz votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Newton.
Senator Newton votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Pappas.
Senator Pappas votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Rest.
Senator Rest votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Sparks.
Senator Sparks votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Wickland.
Senator Wickland votes aye. All members having voted who have the desire to vote, the Secretary will close the roll. There being 67 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. Senator Gazelka.
Mr. President, I move that Senate file number 45 be taken from the table.
On that motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. We will take a brief pause to gather the votes of the members in alternate locations. Receiving a sufficient number of aye votes, the motion prevails. Members, before I call on Senator Gazelka, members, there seems to be a lot more chatter in the chamber today than normal, especially when we're reporting the votes from the members voting under Rule 40.7. Just a reminder, please try to take your discussions and conversations outside the chamber, especially when we are under a roll call vote, so we can hear. Senator Gazelka.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that an urgency be declared within the meaning of Article 4, Section 19 of the Constitution of Minnesota with respect to Senate File Number 45, and that the rules of the Senate be so far suspended as to give Senate File Number 45 its third reading and place it on final passage.
Again, members, this motion will require 45 votes to prevail. On the Gazelka motion, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, say no. We will take a brief pause to gather the votes of the members in alternate locations. Receiving a sufficient number of aye votes, the motion prevails. Members, we now have Senate File 45 in front of us. Senator Curran.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate File 45 is actually a bill that we passed off the floor as Senate File 512 unanimously. And what this bill does is it's for our veterans organizations as it relates to charitable gaming. And everything is the same. It allows short-term loans, veterans organizations, utilization of their gambling funds in a little different manner than they've been able to before. Waives 30% net receipt spending requirements for fiscal year 20. It extends probationary periods for 1 year. It also allows a 30-day limit on credit for the sale of lawful gaming equipment, not to include time bars and restaurants are closed due to COVID. It extends all licenses for 60 days. It waives filing fees for exempt lawful organization groups. It allows rescheduling of events due to the COVID restrictions up to 400 days from original event. And it extends emergency gambling manager training requirements 60 days to allow for the proper scheduling of training once the Executive Order 2020 is lifted. The only modification to this bill is in the interim since we adjourned, or when Sine died, from the original Senate bill, which was Senate File 512, we had a payroll exemption for payroll and salaries. That exemption has been removed based on consultation with the gaming director, and the House author agrees with it as well. So with that, members, I urge a green vote.
Discussion on Senate File 45. Seeing none, the Secretary will give Senate File 45 its third reading.
Senate File Number 45, a bill for an act relating to state government making temporary adjustments to gambling control laws in response to COVID-19.
Third reading. Any final discussion on the bill? Members, we're on final passage of Senate File 45. Seeing no further discussion, the Secretary will take the roll. Members in the retiring room, please come to the chamber to vote. Members in the retiring room. Members in room 303, please make your way down to the chamber to vote. And members in the President's office, please come to the chamber to vote. Members in room 323, please come to the chamber to vote. And members in room 237, please come to the chamber to vote. And members in room 206, please come to the chamber to vote. I will now call on Senator Kent to report the votes of the members voting under Rule 40.7. Senator Kent.
Thank you, Mr. President. I report aye for Senator Carlson.
Senator Carlson votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Clausen.
Senator Clausen votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Eaton.
Senator Eaton votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Lane.
Senator Lane votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Latz.
Senator Latz votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Newton.
Senator Newton votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Pappas.
Senator Pappas votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Rest.
Senator Rest votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Sparks.
Senator Sparks votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Wickland.
Senator Wickland votes aye. I'll now call on Senator Jasinski to report the votes of the members voting under Rule 40.7. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Hall votes aye.
Senator Hall votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Nelson votes aye.
Senator Nelson votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Senjum votes aye.
Senator Senjum votes aye. All members having voted who have the desire to vote, the Secretary will close the roll. There being 67 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. Senator Gazelka.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that House File Number 11 be taken from the table.
On that motion, all in favor say aye. Opposed say no. We'll take a brief pause to gather the votes of the members in alternate locations. Receiving a sufficient number of aye votes, the motion prevails. Senator Gazelka.
Mr. President, I move that an urgency be declared within the meaning of Article 4, Section 19 of the Constitution of Minnesota with respect to House File Number 11 and the rules of the Senate be so far suspended as to give House File Number 11 Mr. President, is this second and third reading and placed on final passage.
Again, members, just a reminder, this motion requires 45 votes to prevail. On the motion, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. We'll take a brief pause to gather the votes of the members in alternate locations. Receiving a sufficient number of aye votes, the motion prevails. The Secretary will give the House file its second reading.
House File Number 11.
Second reading. Members, we have House File 11 in front of us. Senator Abler.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. It's been a real conflicted time for the country and Minnesota. And people at home might be wondering, is there any hope that people could work together and solve problems and make a difference in a way that doesn't make the paper and the headlines? And it's my real privilege and pleasure to bring forward now House File 11 to you, which is the Human Services Omnibus. It's 445 pages of it's actually the wood pulp industry favors human services bills. We go through a lot of paper. It's even got 52 pages of repealers, but it's a really quality piece of work. And for all the rancor that goes on, and a lot of it, I mean, good people disagree about how to best do things, and people will watch that. And I hope that when they're watching even the more contentious fights we'll have coming up, that they'll appreciate that each member is well-intended, and they have a point of view, and they represent that really well. And in Minnesota, there's a lot to be proud of about how things can come together. And so it's my privilege to bring this bill forward today. I'm just going to go over it briefly. This passed the Senate already at the end of session, and it was snagged up in frankly, COVID-related delays over in the House. It passed the House on Friday unanimously, and very pleased about that. But there's a few points, highlights I want to bring up. One thing is, this is a broad collaboration with a lot of members. There's about 30 projects in here, and the authors include Senator Housley, Senator Kiffmeyer, Senator Hayden, Senator Latz, Senator Utke, myself, Senator Marty, another Utke, Senator Rosen, Senator Klein, Senator Draheim, Senator Ralph, and I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody, but you can just see it's a real broad-based thing, and there's a lot of collaboration. And in order for us to serve our 1.1, and Senator Hoffman, sorry. Yeah, one of the least important members, but sorry. Anyway, sorry, Senator Hoffman. You had a big hand in this. You're even a co-author, and I thank you for being my right arm. Sometimes you forget your right arm. You're so relying on it. It's there all the time. And he's been, frankly, amazing in this process and inspires me with his passion for people with disabilities. But there's a lot to be proud of about this bill. And just briefly on the topic areas, it covers child care. And for those people who have been wondering how to properly supervise a toddler in a bathroom at a child care, we've got that covered in this bill. That's probably one of the highest highlights. Maybe not really, but it's like the things we have to pass laws about are amazing. There's guardians and conservators, the Cultural and Ethnic Communities Leadership Council's extended, family assets for independence, first 2 years of life, birth to age 8, comfort call training, the ARM policy bill for group homes, sexual violence prevention, fetal alcohol, home care, children's mental health, and autism treatment, substance use disorder, child protection policy, civil commitments, and Maltreatment of Minors Act. The difference that this has since we last saw it is Article 9 has been deleted. That's the discussion about the Commissioner's temporary emergency authority, and that is going to be carried in a different bill altogether, which hopefully will come up yet this week. I know Senator Hoffman is going to elaborate, but I want to point out that of all these things in this bill that are so very important, the highlight, there is a highlight to me, and it's redirecting the future of services to people with autism, a vision for independence. And so in the past, way in the past, they would just be picked up at their home and be put somewhere. The family wouldn't see them anymore. Where did they go? And we had all these asylums for the insane, Anoka, that's what they actually called it back in the day in 1904. And that was the best we had, and it was terrible, and they did horrible things. Over time, we've gotten to respect the humanism, the humanity of these individuals, and then we had smaller places, and now we put people in 4-person group homes, which now was a big improvement over the asylums, but still, it doesn't give people the autonomy and the freedom to be independent. The young adults moving that come with intellectual challenges or other brain injuries or whatever want a chance to live in as traditional a way as possible in their own apartment, their own job, and so what this bill does, it redirects by policy that the default setting is not you're going to go into a group home, but that you're going to live independently. And if you can't, well, for heaven's sakes, we'll certainly let you have that opportunity. And the dream and the passion behind this, a lot of it comes from the ARC, but many other providers and groups that are caring about this. But the idea is when you go into a grocery store and you say, oh, look at that person with an intellectual disability they've hired. Isn't that nice? How about if we do it and say, look, they've hired a person. There's another person working there. I wonder if they know where the bananas are. And so that's where we're moving, and I think it's just a moment to reflect. And I think as we move forward into these other issues about equity and the challenges, that can we just see people being somewhere, wherever they came from and however the rest of it is. And so in the world of the people with disability, there is a fair amount of non-respect and non-inclusion that we're really trying hard to repair. This bill sets a milestone for that. And so, still apologizing for neglecting to mention my good colleague, Senator Hoffman, I will stop there, Mr. President, and I think he might have something to say. Thank you.
Further discussion on the bill, Senator Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. President, and members, and to the good senator from Anoka. It's okay that some of us that live in Champlin, we're respondent that when we cross the Anoka Bridge, that's what people in Anoka County call it. Us in Champlin call it the Champlin Bridge. We're supposed to bring a visa, so we're used to not being respondent there, Mr. President. But look, my wife told me not to be funny during this, so I'm not going to try to be funny. So with that, Mr. President, I do want to say, Senator Abeler, thank you. You put together, once again, a coalition of nonpartisan, bipartisan folks that really looked at what good policy is. And when you talk about our independence, you talk about something that was started in 1999 with the Olmstead decision in the Supreme Court. Now we are saying that first default is I have a right as a person living with a disability to not only live in the community, but to also work in the community. That's huge. That is huge policy, and I think it's about time that we reflect on that and say, thank you, way to go. And this wouldn't have happened without a whole joint effort of folks from all across the state that said what were their responsibilities, what is it that they want for their children, what is it that they want for themselves, and we listened in that. And so I applaud the work that we did. It's unfortunate that we had to take 60-plus days off to really have this vetted out and so that we could truly have a real public acknowledgement of the hard work that was put into this bill that you have in front of you, Mr. President. And with saying all that and the wonderful work that we did collaboratively, it brings to mind what Jim Ramstad did teach us when he was a state senator and as a congressman. Health and Human Services is not a discussion of politics, it's a discussion of policy that has to be rooted in the person and the outcome that we want. Leave your ego out in the hallway. I'm never, ever going to forget that, Ramstad, and that's evident today that you're seeing. And so with that, Mr. President, I do want to say we didn't go far enough on one aspect. There are programs throughout the state of Minnesota that are going to be shutting their doors. One in Big Lake, Minnesota, for example, that is providing services to the most vulnerable in our state. They're going to go into receivership as a nonprofit at the end of June if they don't get some retainer payments. And the retainer payments are something that 36 other states in the nation have asked for permission from the Centers for Medicaid Services to do. It's not a new waiver. It's not a modification. What it specifically says is we are going to take the money that you've already allocated as a state and we're going to match that on the federal level and then allow you to do retainer payments to these organizations. This is something that I don't understand why Minnesota has yet to move on that, Mr. President. And unless we move on that, you're going to see places in Hutchinson, Minnesota, they're going to shut their doors. You're going to see places in Winstead. There's a center, a day activity center in Winstead, Minnesota. They're 4 months away from shutting their doors because of the fact they don't have any money coming in to provide the services. Matter of fact, Mr. President, they are actually $40,000 owed to their transportation company that specifically comes from the waiver dollars. That, oh, by the way, CMS, and I have the emails from CMS that said if Minnesota would just ask for permission to be able to do retainer, they would do that. So my shout out is to the folks in the administration and the Department of Human Services to take this bill that we have and we've done good work on, but let's go to that next level. Let's just simply do the one letter that we need to do to CMS to make this a fulfilled bill, Mr. President, and that's a simple letter. I have actual documentation on what that letter would look like that would actually increase that road to independence and help organizations stay afloat. We do know that there are other places throughout the state that have also said the same things. I know Senator Matthews' district has had the same response, Senator Ken Eakin's district the same response. There are 368 programs that will be hard pressed to stay afloat unless we simply get CMS to say yes, which did I tell you, Mr. President, that there were 36 other states, including the District of Columbia, that said, would you allow us to do retainer payments? And CMS said, yes. I have that information, and I'd be more than happy to share that. But going back to that, that would make this bill even that much more broader and more helpful to people with disabilities in the state of Minnesota. So thank you, Senator Abler, good senator from Anoka. Yes, I will cross that bridge many times, and I want to say thank you for being bipartisan on this and nonpartisan and really looking at the unique needs of folks in the state of Minnesota. Thank you, Mr. President.
Further discussion on House File 11, Senator Hayden.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. Before Senator Hoffman leaves the chambers, I wonder if he'd yield to a question.
Senator Hoffman, will you yield?
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Hoffman, I was compelled by your statements there, your speech at the end, and so there's been a lot of things going on in the last month, so I haven't kept up on every specific provision that's in this bill, and I know that you and Senator Abel have been working very closely together, and I appreciate that. Is there a reason why we just didn't put what you said in this bill in order for it to go into law and then CMS, and then we could go forth and fund those day centers and others?
Senator Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. President, and to the good member from Minneapolis. Yeah, you want my personal opinion, Mr. Senator? Can I yield back to Senator Hayden? Does he want my personal opinion on that, or does he want my structured opinion on that?
Senator Hayden. Senator Hayden.
Thank you, Mr. President and Senator Hoffman. I literally am just trying to figure out what the mechanism is. So is it a standalone bill that we need, or is it something that we could have put in this 400-page bill in order for us to move forward?
Senator Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. President, and a good senator from Minneapolis. We could get it actually, legislation is not needed. We have the wherewithal within the state confines, within the Medicaid system, and CMS has made it very clear you don't have to create a new waiver, you don't need legislative authority. All you have to do is ask us and we'll give you permission. And so if we need to do language, if it settles the administration well that they need language, then perhaps Senator Hayden, you would help Senator Abler and I put some language into, I believe, Senate File 90 or whatever the next Human Services bill that is coming up this week. But adding it now, I think, would be a little wouldn't be helpful right now at the time, Senator Hayden. So I think let's get that into the next bill that's coming either tomorrow or Friday.
Senator Hayden.
Well, good. Well, thank you, Mr. President. And I know that Senator Hoffman is an utmost authority on these issues, and so I really was asking the question. And I'd be more than happy as the lead in the committee to work with Senator Hoffman, who's a foremost expert, and Senator Abeler, who's the chair, to put whatever we can get through with the House and the administration, because I do think it's extremely important what he was saying. I was just trying to, as opposed to, I think it's really important to get it out in the atmosphere in the marketplace, but it's solution time now. We're in special session, and I wanted to make sure that I could add whatever I can to resolve that issue, because I do think it is extremely important. I have a big center that is 2 blocks from my house in my district that really needs this as well. Mr. President, I do have a couple questions also for Senator Abeler, and I don't know if I jumped the line because I went to this point.
Senator Hoffman, I think, Senator Hayden, if you don't mind, Senator Hoffman would like to respond to your previous comments, and then we'll go back to you for questions if Senator Abeler will yield. Senator Hoffman.
Mr. President, thank you. And just to clarify, I have examples of the 36 plus the District of Columbia states letters, and they did not require legislative action. It was a request from the Centers of Medicaid Services person within the states who said to CMS, may we do this? And CMS said yes.
Okay, back to you, Senator Hayden.
Good.
You're
Well,
asking
thank you,
Senator Abeler to yield, is that correct?
Yeah, well, thank you, Mr. President. And just a final comment to that if it requires us to have a conversation with DHS to send a letter to the Center for Medicaid Services, I'd be more than willing to add my signature to that. But now I do have a question for Senator Abeler.
Senator Abeler will yield. Senator Hayden.
Well, Senator Abeler, once again, thank you for bringing this bill. I know that it has been a long time in coming, and you've done a tremendous amount of work. I do have a question, Senator Abeler, and I literally really don't, it's not rhetorical. I don't know what it means. I didn't get a chance to read the whole bill. It's on page 55, line 55.26. It says post-arrest / officer-involved community-based service / care coordination, and it goes on to the next page. Could you just give me a bit of a summary on what that is and what's it trying to do?
Senator Abeler.
Thanks, Senator Hayden. You said 55.6? Are you working off the House file?
Senator Hayden.
Yeah, Mr. President, it looks like the bill that's in front of us, 55.26 on page 55, subdivision 56A.
This might be the yellow line thing from Senator Rosen. Does that seem possible? She's not on the floor right now, but I think that's where that came from.
Senator Rosen is in the chamber. Perhaps we could get her to take a look at that.
Oh, Senator Rosen, actually, I'm answering a question. I don't have the floor except to respond. But I think, Senator Hayden, you might want to, on line 55.26, officer-involved community-based care coordination. I believe that was Senator Rosen's piece. And then, so, Senator Hayden, I suggest you ask her. Thank you.
Senator Hayden.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. And Senator Rosen, you.
Senator Rosen will yield. Senator Hayden.
Well, thank you, Senator Rosen. I think we were going to line page 55, 55.26, the officer-involved community-based care coordination. Senator Abeler thinks this might be Project Yellow Line. I just wanted to see if that's what it was.
Senator Rosen.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Senator Hayden, for picking that out. I was actually just on my my texting and making sure that that was there, and it is the Yellow Line project that we have been working so diligently on this body for a very long time, and I know it has great success. It started in Blue Earth County in Mankato and Senator Francis District, and he will be very happy to see this too come to fruition. So thank you, Senator Abeler, for including this in your bill. It's a very important piece.
Senator Hayden.
Well, thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Senator Rosen. I am familiar with that. I just didn't know what it looked like in actual language. For now, Mr. President, that's the only questions I have. I may have more comments later.
Next on the list, I have Senator Ralph.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to also speak about in support of this bill. It has many fine provisions, including, and I won't list all of them, but it has fine provisions regarding the treatment of fetal alcohol syndrome. It also provides some additional language regarding regional treatment facilities. And so I think that these are very important when we start dealing with the vulnerable people in our population. It also provides very excellent support moving forward for the disability community. So I just want to say thank you to Senator Abeler for bringing this forward and including the many provisions that are going to benefit our communities. Thank you, Mr. President.
Next on the list, I have Senator Klein, followed by, I believe, Senator Kiffmeyer. Senator Klein.
Well, thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Senator Abeler, for the bill and for including my provisions within the bill. I'm grateful that, as you say, we were able to come together as Minnesotans and as a chamber to prove to the people of this state that we can work in a bipartisan fashion to accomplish good things during this fraught and partisan time. I'm going to take an opportunity to speak about another great accomplishment that Minnesotans can be proud of in that same vein today, Mr. President, and that is the improvement in hospitalizations for COVID-19. And as I was walking out of the chamber after the last vote, Senator Gazelka pointed out to me that, I had spoken on the floor fairly passionately about the risk to our hospitals about 6 weeks ago. And without question, the month of June has been a continuous decline in hospitalizations and ICU stays for people with COVID-19 in Minnesota. It's a tremendous accomplishment. We can feel it in our practice. Every staff person can feel it, and we feel that we're able to deliver better care. And being a legislature and being a political body, people will then say, well, who gets credit for that, or who gets blamed, or did we do it wrong that we're in the place we are in? And I would argue that we all get credit for it. We worked well together as Minnesotans. Certainly Governor Walz, with his austere leadership and patient steerage of this ship, gets credit. But above all, Mr. President, the people of Minnesota, through shared sacrifice, get the credit for this incredible turn of events. If you look at the state of Texas, their graph for June is the opposite of ours. It is a continual positive slope in hospitalization and intensive care unit stays after they ended their stay-at-home order on April 30th. They are desperately short on supplies. Their staff is overworked and fraught, and difficult decisions, such as I alluded to previously, are being made. So we have much to be grateful for in Minnesota, that the good people of Minnesota sacrificed collectively. And I know that everyone sacrificed, some with tremendous hardship and tremendous loss, some to the point that they may not recover to their previous level of economic prosperity or health. But we did it to get to this point, Mr. President. We did it to get to this point where we can manage COVID-19 for the time being in our hospitals. We can care for people appropriately and treat Minnesotans the way we anticipate we should be able to treat them. Epidemiologists tell us, Mr. President, that we will have a second wave. I trust them because they know their work. But now we know that when that comes, that we have the diligence and the intelligence and the durability in this state to approach it correctly. So I thank Governor Walz for steering this ship appropriately, and I thank the people of Minnesota for working in a bipartisan fashion.
And Senator Klein, I think I can say safely on behalf of this chamber, thank you for your work on the front lines. Next on the list, Senator Kiffmeyer, followed by Senator Dibble. Senator Kiffmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. Addressing the issue that was brought up by Senator Abeler and Senator Hoffman, Senator Hayden spoke to it as well. In regards to day training and habilitation centers, which are all across the state of Minnesota, many of them are at risk of being foreclosed on, going into bankruptcy, businesses failing, loss of employment for these entities. And in listening to Senator Hoffman talk about this, that for lack of a question, just a simple question from the governor's office through Commissioner Harpstead, for the lack of a question, money that is sitting right there, federal and state money, ready to be used specifically for this purpose, for lack of a question to the Center for Medicaid Services. Would Senator Hayden yield to a question?
Senator Hayden will yield. Senator Kiffmeyer.
So, Senator Hayden, my question for you is, you seem to be a bit knowledgeable about this. Have you heard any information from the governor's office in regards to the governor's position on this? For lack of a single phone call, all these entities, your district, everybody around? What's the answer to that? Senator Hayden, might you be able to help and inform us as to the status of this from the governor's office?
Senator Hayden.
Good. Well, thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Senator Kiffmeyer. Well, I guess the way that I would say is no, I haven't heard from the governor's office directly. However, there has been some general communique that this would need legislative approval. Now, Senator Hoffman is saying to us that we don't, and that he has some emails or evidence from other states that they didn't have to do that. What I do know about DHS and the Center for Medicaid Services is not all waivers are the same, and they don't treat all states the same. And so I guess the question that I would ask is that if indeed, though Senator Hoffman in particular, but also Senator Abler, who have been working on this, the question would be what is their communique with the governor's office? But better yet, when I think about some of the great work that Senator Rose is doing, this legislative body also has an opportunity to bring a bill forward or a proposal forward in order to say this is what they want to do, and then pass that bill in order to compel us to talk to the Center for Medicaid Services. So, you know, there's a lot of conjecture on the floor. I think it would be better if we didn't have this conversation in special session, but have convened a meeting that we often do with the administration and then ask them specifically. And if that has been done, because it could have, then I'll stand corrected. But I think that that is the question that I was asking is, has there been that opportunity, or better yet, has there been language that has been put forward in order for us to send a strong message to the administration that we believe that this is something that we should do?
Mm-hmm.
Senator Kiffmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Hayden. Well, that was a rather long answer, but I think from what I heard from that answer was that no. And what's baffling to me is that after 3 months, this is a well-known issue, well-known entities across the state of Minnesota. And so it's just baffling to me with all the staff and all of the people that this issue, which is so important, for the lack of a phone call to ask, it just baffles me. And to say now you're not quite sure, not quite sure, not quite sure. Why are you not quite sure after 3 months? I mean, it just baffles me for the lack of one simple phone call to ask the Center for Medicaid Services. And all these other states, they said, yes. I don't think Minnesota is that much different. I want to encourage the governor, make the phone call. Take care of these people. They're important. They matter to us. It's important. So, Governor, direct your staff, make the phone call. This doesn't need to have any more time, any more stuff going on. Just make the phone call. Let's get this done. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Hayden.
So thank you, Mr. Chair. But before Senator Kiffmeyer leaves, will she yield to a question?
Senator Kiffmeyer will yield. Senator Hayden.
So, Senator Kiffmeyer, I appreciate your work. You are a senior member of this legislature, a chair. You also serve on these committees. So I guess my question to you is, have you talked to the governor and asked him to make that passionate phone call, the phone call that he needs to make so that you're not so baffled to figure out why we're not doing this?
Senator Kiffmeyer.
Well, thank you, Mr. President and Senator Hayden. Well, I'm certainly glad to do that, but it just seems so obvious. Why should I have to make a phone call to the governor? And if you'll pick up the phone call when I call him, delighted. I've sent him many letters. I've sent him a letter on this, matter of fact, joined with other senators to send a letter to the governor saying, here's the issue, please do this, take care of this, governor. So I'd be glad to make a personal phone call to him. I'll be right there, right on my phone. And Senator Hayden, you get me his number, I will call him right now. If that's what it takes, we'll get this done right now, Senator Hayden. And thank you, Mr. President. It's good to see we got some movement on this. Bipartisan, too. Thank you.
If no one makes the call, I'll make the call. Senator Hayden.
So, Mr. President, I would take that as Senator Kiffmeyer says no. But Senator Kiffmeyer, we would be glad to make that phone call. We'd be glad to send maybe one of our great staff here in front of us to just run downstairs and see if maybe we could get him to move forward. But in all seriousness, because it is a serious issue, I do think it is worthy of a conversation if it hadn't had to figure out what is the proper procedure. Is it simply just that phone call or letter to the Center for Medicaid Services, which we often do, or is it something that we need to do more? But around here, nothing actually is what it seems, and so is that conversation, how can that conversation be facilitated? It is something that we care about, and I would hope that the relationships around here are strong and that we can kind of rise above sometimes our differences and go high and figure out how we can work awfully hard. And I certainly stand ready to make that call, to walk down to the governor's office or do whatever it is that we need to do to move forward. If it is just as simple, typically it isn't like that around here, but if it is just as simple to call the governor and get the governor's staff to request permission from the Center of Medicaid Services, and they simply just have to tell us yes, because Minnesota is exceptional. I'm not sure why we wouldn't do it, and I'd be ready to stand with you to make that call.
Next on the list, I have Senator Dibble, followed by Senator Newman. Senator Dibble.
Thank you, Mr. President. If Senator Abler would yield.
Senator Abler will yield. Senator Dibble.
Great, thank you. Senator Abler, if you could take a quick peek at section 59 on page 159, having to do with minor consent to homeless and sexually exploited youth services. I just wanted to highlight this. It looks like another bit of good news, a lot of good news in this bill, and we appreciate that. And as you know, I pay a lot of attention to issues around homeless youth as well as trafficked youth. But this item hadn't come to my attention, this need to drop this policy item in to make sure that minors could themselves consent to receive these services absent their parent or legal guardian's knowledge or consent. Do you recall, and if you don't, that's totally fine, I'm just curious, where this came from, who brought this forward, and what the extent of the problem that we're solving is with this language?
Senator Abler.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Dibble. Yes, this came, I think it may have been a department thing. It was not a Senate position. It came from Representative Neuer from House File 3812. And there's a whole chunk of stuff about foster care placement standards, procedures, plans, tribal maltreatment investigations, qualified residential treatment, and some of the child protection policy. I believe it was part of that whole cluster. And it seems like it may well have been a department proposal that we accepted in our negotiations. And I'm glad we can do it, and thanks for pointing that out.
Senator Dibble.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Abler, for calling attention. There's following this, starting with section 60, many pages around foster care placement and setting up a ton of new procedures and regulations and rules. And I was just, again, was going to ask where exactly that comes from, and I'm wondering if this is that big package that we've been hearing about from the foster care advocacy community, trying to really correct and set a new and better course around foster care placement and procedures and the rights of young people, proper training, and making sure they're going into good settings and getting the kinds of culturally competent services and mental health and chemical dependency services that they might need.
Senator Abler.
Thank you, Mr. President. As I say, this was not a Senate position, but there were a lot of groups like Aspire and others. And just for information, sections 59 to 63, sections 66 to 91 and 96 are part of that whole package. So there's a lot of stuff. I would say we haven't quite got it all resolved yet, but I think it's a good step in trying to help the foster protection side to move forward. There's a bunch of work to do about foster grandparents, and that we were unable to achieve that. And I'm disappointed we can't get the relative adoptions to go as well as they might, but there's other things to work on. Thank you.
Next on the list, I have Senator Newman, followed by Senator Isaacson. Senator Newman.
Mr. President, thank you. I simply wanted to come forward and thank Senator Abler for bringing this bill forward. I also in particular want to thank Senator Hoffman for raising the issue of the groups that are going to be going out of business if we don't get them some help. And that is what Senator Kiffmeyer was talking about. And as Senator Hoffman pointed out, there's 2 of them in my district alone, one in Winsted and one in Hutchinson. I've been in both of those facilities, and I will tell you that those facilities have real people in them that really do need our help. They are the type of folks that we should be stepping forward to help improve their lives. And without the funding that Senator Hoffman was talking about, those 2 facilities in my district are going to go out of business. They're going to go bankrupt. And I see really no reason why we shouldn't at least try to get that funding to go through with the request that Senator Hoffman was talking about. So again, I would also urge the governor to do whatever is necessary to make sure that that waiver is granted and those businesses with those folks that need our help remain in business. Thank you, Mr. President.
Next on the list is Senator Isaacson. Senator Marty, would you like to speak while we wait for Senator Isaacson? Senator Marty.
Thank you, Mr. President. I had a question if Senator Abler would yield.
Senator Abler will yield. Senator Marty.
Mr. President, Senator Abler, the original version of the bill had a codification of some of the authority for DHS, and I believe the House minority objected to it. And I wanted to just get clarification on when and how that's going to be addressed, because I guess the concern is, and I believe there's other legislation to deal with it, but with the bill, with the current system, we get these waivers in place, and then the emergency shuts down at a certain date, and the next day, waivers and everything goes away. I believe there's another bill that would extend some of them for 60 days, some for a year, but extend the changes so that we don't cut everything off the day of the end of the emergency. I guess I wanted to ask the status of that legislation. What do you think the prospects of it are, and how we make sure that happens?
Senator Abler.
Senator Marty, if you remember Johnny Carson and Ed McMahon, every so often Ed would set up a question or a comment for Johnny. I couldn't have paid you to ask a better question, although it's a really good question. Because I was going to make a comment about that anyway. There's another bill pending. It should be in the, maybe if there's another set of introductions coming, it should be there. Anyway, it's dropped. And so Representative Liebling and I have worked with the department, the counties, advocates, to come up with some of the waivers that should be extended. Just as an aside, if we were ever going to get rid of the peacetime emergency and have the legislature weigh in, reviewing each order item by item would be part of the way that could go forward. This may be a model for how that could go. But I'll tell you, the process, again, in this arena, we've been blessed with people who are collaborative, has been very collegial, and there's a lot of good waivers being extended there. We hope to plan to take that up this week. And there's a number, so we're extending all of them 60 days. Past the end of the peacetime emergency. Some go a little randomly longer as the feds have some compliance issue about getting the extra federal match. And there's a second category of those. And the third category are those who are going to go, which are going to go till June 30th of 2021. And there's a lot of buy-in on those. It's my hope that we can sort out whatever legislative action has to come on this day treatment retention money in that bill as well. And the counties are still pushing for 1 or 2 more, which will resolve. So I'm optimistic about that. And so that's the answer to your question.
Senator Marty.
Thank you, Mr. President. And if Senator Abler will continue to yield, I just had a question. Did you expect that to pass this week or during this special session, however long it's supposed to be?
Senator Abler will continue to yield. Senator Abler.
Senator Marty, how long is a special session supposed to be? Is there, never mind. My hope is yes. We have a draft we've agreed to. There's a few changes coming. And I have no idea about the schedule, but it's been introduced today. And there'll be an amendment of some sort to clarify this DT&H matter for the retention. And then maybe a few other add-ons, but hopefully this week. And so, I don't know if it's going to be Friday or when. We have a few things to sort out, and maybe the details of this grant thing here. And so I want to thank the administration, just while I've got the floor still, for taking interest in this topic. 36 of us sent a letter to the governor urging him to be interested. It was a very friendly, gentle letter. And Senator Hoffman and I resent that to him a couple days ago, and you're going to hear from Senator Isaacson, who's liaisoning, and Senator Kiffmeyer and Senator Cran, and others who are really very concerned about this. So hopefully this will be another one of our success stories. Thank you.
Senator Marty.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I think the planning for the other legislation has been done in a wise way with the counties and the advocacy groups and others pushing through it and trying to figure out what appropriate wind down time is after the crisis is over. And I guess I'd have to say that's the way we ought to do it, trying to shut down the emergency without dealing with those things first is a problem. And so I appreciate the fact that that is being done bipartisan, bicameral way. And I think it'll serve us much better than the idea of simply let's shut down the shutdown and then pick up every piece and figure out a way to move forward then. So I think this is a much wiser way to do it, and I applaud that. Thank you, Mr. President.
The Secretary will give House File 11 its third reading.
House File Number 11, a bill for an act relating to human services.
Third reading. Senator Isaacson, I still have Senator Isaacson on the list, and then I've also been notified that Senator Nelson would like to speak. First one to the microphone gets to speak first. Senator Isaacson or Senator Nelson? Senator Isaacson.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I've heard some really fun debate about this issue, and I really see two things kind of crystallizing out of it. One, as I've talked with Senator Abler, we should just make sure we go forward and get the legislative consent as a backup to making sure this gets done. I've heard some question, and I've been trying to dig into why the governor doesn't think that he has the authority to do that. And it has something to do, my understanding has to do with the bottom line, and some money fell back onto the bottom line in May. And then if he were to go out and do this, it would create an expenditure that has not been allocated for him to expend. And so that would mean that he cannot then do that because that's against the rules. Either way, my understanding is if we pass this through the legislature, the governor will sign it, and then we can get this done and get it over with. And that'd be what I'd want to see us do as fast as possible. So, thank you.
Sounds like Senator Isaacson made the phone call. All right, we're waiting for Senator Nelson. Going once, going, no, I'm just kidding. Senator Abler.
Well, I'll just offer my brief closing thoughts before we were actually closing. And this has been a remarkable discussion. Mr. President, the more time spent on the topic of human services on the Senate floor, the better, because this area seems so huge and so complicated. But I'll tell you, it's 1.1 million people, one person at a time. And Minnesota is caring and generous, thoughtful, resourceful, and committed to the chance that all people can have a chance to succeed in this great state of ours. And so thank you for your encouragement of this bill. I'm eager to see where we can get going on this other matter to keep these very important day services places open. And Mr. President, I do not have any more comments at the end of that. Thank you. I urge a yes vote.
Senator Nelson.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. And Senator Abler, I just wanted to thank you for your work on this legislation, and particularly to mention the self-directed caregiver grants. This body passed those in our session, didn't quite get through the House at that time, and I just wanted to thank Senator Abler for including these. These grants will help our caregivers, and particularly in a time of COVID-19 when many of the adult day centers are not open. This is incredibly important, and I just wanted to thank Senator Abler for getting it through in this bill. It will help our caregivers get those grants in a more timely, effective manner, and I just wanted to convey my thanks. Thank you.
Members, any final discussion on House File 11? We're on final passage of House File 11. Seeing no further discussion, the Secretary will take the roll. Members in the retiring room, please come to the chamber to vote. Members in room 303, please come to the chamber to vote. And members in the President's office, please come to the chamber to vote. Members in room 323, please come to the chamber to vote. Members in room 237, please come to the chamber to vote. Members in room 206, please come to the chamber to vote. I will now call on Senator Kent to report the votes of the members voting under Rule 40.7. Senator Kent.
Thank you, Mr. President. I report aye for Senator Bigham.
Senator Bigham votes aye. Members, we're under a roll call vote. We're reporting the votes. It's a little hard to hear. Thank you. Senator Kent.
Thank you, Mr. President. I report aye for Senator Carlson.
Senator Carlson votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Clausen.
Senator Clausen votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Eaton.
Senator Eaton votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Lane.
Senator Lane votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Latz.
Senator Latz votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Newton.
Senator Newton votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Pappas.
Senator Pappas votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Rest.
Senator Rest votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Sparks.
Senator Sparks votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Wickland.
Senator Wickland votes aye. I'll now call on Senator Jasinski to report the vote of the member voting under Rule 40.7. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. I report Senator Hall votes aye.
Senator Hall votes aye. All members having voted who have the desire to vote, the Secretary will close the roll. There being 67 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. Senator Gazelka.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that House File Number 65 be taken from the table.
On that motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. We'll take a brief pause to gather the votes of the members in alternate locations. Receiving a sufficient number of aye votes, the motion prevails. Senator Gazelka.
Mr. President, I move that an urgency be declared within the meaning of Article 4, Section 19 of the Constitution of Minnesota with respect to House File Number 65, and that the rules of the Senate be so far suspended as to give House File Number 65 its third reading and place it on final passage.
On that motion, all in favor say aye. Opposed say no. We'll take a brief pause to gather the votes of the members in alternate locations. Receiving a sufficient number of aye votes, the motion prevails. Members, we now have House File 65 in front of us on the floor. Senator Newman.
Thank you, Mr. President. House File 65 is a bill involving transportation. It contains two provisions which I believe to be purely non-controversial. Both provisions are requests from the department. The first would clarify that replacement plates are subject to an existing license plate fee as indicated in the schedule in the bill, and that fee is about $5.50 that would be charged for a replacement fee or replacement plate. The second provision involves a gold star on an enhanced driver's license, which is the equivalent of allowing an enhanced driver's license to be used for folks who want to board airplanes. There is some confusion with TSA employees as to whether an enhanced driver's license is Real ID compliant. It is, and so DVS has requested that we add to the enhanced driver's license the gold star. That is purely a request from the department. The first provision we have had hearings on. The second one we have not. I would indicate, however, that I'm not aware of any controversy on either one, and there is no fiscal implications that will come our way with respect to either provision. And that, colleagues, is the bill.
I have Senator Osmic followed by Senator Dibble. Senator Osmic.
Thank you, Mr. President. Seeing as this is a transportation-related bill, I would move the A50 amendment, and I do have an oral amendment.
Senator Osmic moves the A50 amendment. Do you want to state your oral amendment, and we'll incorporate it into the amendment?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would make the following oral amendment after the word unlawful on line 1.8. You would add the following sentence. This section of highway will be renamed the Richard Cohen Scenic Byway, period.
Members, just give the secretary a moment. He's going to write that down, and then he'll report the A50 amendment, and then we'll have discussion. We're incorporating it into the A50. The secretary will report the A50 amendment with the oral amendment incorporated into the A50.
To be incorporated is on line 1.8 after the word unlawful, new sentence to read, this highway will be renamed the Richard Cohen Scenic Byway.
All right, members, we are on the A50 amendment discussion. Senator Cohen.
Mr. President, I'm almost speechless. And my thanks to Senator Osmic. What a really nice going away present. What I particularly like is that we don't have Senator Pappas on this amendment anymore. And so it's just me. And that's even more flattering. I do have a couple of questions of Senator Osmic. It's the scenic byway. Byway, as by definition, if I'm not mistaken, is just secondary. It's not. It's a byway as opposed to the highway, and so I wonder why that word is part of it. Otherwise, I don't know. Looks pretty good. I don't know if the Department of Transportation needs to weigh in on this, and possibly Senator Osmic, you don't care. I don't know. Just looking at the rest of the amendment, I don't know if you're aware that there was a federal court decision as part of the consent decree somewhere around 50 or 60 years ago. I was not in the state Senate at that time. I came a couple years later and heard some discussion about that consent decree. I don't know if you're familiar with it. We could pull it up and read through it. Otherwise, I don't know. I can think of some other things that maybe I'd like to be named after, or that would be named after me. But this is a very good start.
Senator Osmic.
Thank you, Mr. President. In response to Senator Cohen, I thought that this is a wonderful nod to Senator Scott Newman, who once upon a time, I believe that was 2017, Senator Bach, almost had a scenic byway named for him on the Iron Range. So I thought that was probably pretty correct. If you did not like scenic byway, I would strike the word scenic byway and put in raceway if you thought that that was a better opportunity to honor your long tenure. However, knowing full well of your lecture, which usually takes about 45 minutes on the 35E settlement, Mr. President, I will withdraw the amendment.
Senator Osmic withdraws the A50 amendment. Next, Senator Cohen.
Senator Osmic, not so fast.
Senator Dibble.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. Yeah, I'm disappointed that was withdrawn too. Senator Osmic might have gotten me on that vote. Mr. President, I just wanted to mention that I am in support of House File 65 as it has come over from the House. And as Senator Newman presented in the bill, it simply places in statute what is actually practice, current practice, that replacement plates, both dealer plates and tax-exempt plates, pay a fee of $5.25. And then we've had this problem of Minnesotans producing their enhanced driver's license as they've attempted to board airplanes and have gotten snared up and detained and delayed because TSA agents don't recognize the EDL as Real ID compliant, though it is, but if it has a little star on it, it'll look like other Real IDs, and that's what they're looking for, is that little gold star on those driver's license. Which I'm glad, because when I get my license renewed, I'm going to actually get an EDL, not a Real ID per se. So I'm glad I'll be able to get on an airplane and not have any trouble from TSA agents. And the reason it's important to pass both of these now, of course, is we're in the midst of the vehicle titling and registration system programming, and to make these changes on a timely basis means it can just be absorbed into the timeline that we have, rather than having to go back and do it, and that makes it more cumbersome and more expensive. So thank you, Senator Newman, for checking in with me on these changes before the bill came forward, and I encourage members to vote green. Thank you, Mr. President.
The Secretary will give House File 65 its third reading.
House File Number 65, a bill for an act relating to public safety.
Third reading. Members, any final discussion on the bill? We're on final passage of House File 65. Seeing no further discussion, the Secretary will take the roll. Members in the retiring room, please come to the chamber to vote. Retiring room. Members in room 303, please come to the chamber to vote. And members in the President's office, please come to the chamber to vote. Members in room 323, please come to the chamber to vote. Members in room 237, please come to the chamber to vote. And members in room 206, please come to the chamber to vote. I'll call on Senator Jasinski to report the votes of the members voting under Rule 40.7. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. I report Senator Dan Hall votes aye.
Senator Hall votes aye. I will call on Senator Kent to report the votes of the members voting under Rule 40.7. Senator Kent.
Thank you, Mr. President. I report aye for Senator Bigham.
Senator Bigham votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Carlson.
Senator Carlson votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Clausen.
Senator Clausen votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Eaton.
Senator Eaton votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Lane.
Senator Lane votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Latz.
Senator Latz votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Newton.
Senator Newton votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Pappas.
Senator Pappas votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Rest.
Senator Rest votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Sparks.
Senator Sparks votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Wickland.
Senator Wickland votes aye. All members having voted who have the desire to vote, the Secretary will close the roll. There being 67 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. Senator Gazelka.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that House File number 37 be taken from the table.
On that motion, all in favor say aye. Opposed say no. We'll take a brief pause to gather the votes of the members in alternate locations. Receiving a sufficient number of aye votes, the motion prevails. Senator Gazelka.
Mr. President, I move that an urgency be declared within the meaning of Article 4, Section 19 of the Constitution of Minnesota with respect to Senate File number 47, and that the rules of the Senate be so far suspended as to give Senate File number 47 its third reading and placed on final passage.
Just correction, Senator Gazelka, it's House File 37. Senator Gazelka renews his motion on declaring an urgency on House File 37. Again, to suspend the rules, this motion will require 45 aye votes. All those in favor of the Gazelka motion say aye. Opposed, say no. We'll take a brief pause to gather the votes of the members in alternate locations. Good. Receiving a sufficient number of aye votes, the motion prevails. Members, we now have House File 37 in front of us. Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. House File 37 is an agreement upon work of basically three separate issues that has been agreed upon again by all the interested parties here in the Senate and the House. House File number 37, if you notice, it's an environment MPCA DNR bill, Section 1 of the bill. And members, you should know that this has also been obviously it's been passed in the House. Section 1 is protecting tax exemptions for solid waste management, recyclable materials, and resource-separated compost materials. Members, because of COVID, and you're going to hear that at least twice here, because of COVID, we are the activities, recycling activities are not happening as usual due to the lack of sorting personnel at the facilities. This means that recycled items are usually tax exempt, are being thrown into the trash which is taxed. This means that customers will likely see a steep increase in their waste bill during this COVID-19, and we don't want that. The MPCA is agreement that we don't want to do that. So the amendment recommended by the MPCA would continue to exempt recyclable materials that is included with regular trash. As you notice too in the bill, it does expire 60 days after the recycled material, 60 days after the emergency order. So that's section 1. Section number 2 of the bill, members, is the LCCMR. Again, due to COVID-19, there were about 50 projects that have been funded, or there are funding extensions in order to complete the projects. This is something that's done every year, not only here, but also Lessard Sam's Outdoor Heritage, where the projects that would have been granted and appropriated, for instance, 3 years ago, would need a little extra time past the mark of June 31st. So this is something real standard. There are 50 projects that will be able to be finished, and so that's pretty straightforward, and it's a really good thing to get done. There was this worry about them doing as well, having to shorten their projects and stifle their projects with regards to COVID-19. Section number 3 is a DNR initiative, Accessibility Wildlife Management Area. Actually, it was agreed upon by the DNR as a pilot project, where the DNR is directed to work with the Council of Disabilities and other stakeholders with regards to increased access to WMAs for persons with disabilities for the purpose of hunting and other natural resource-based recreational opportunities. So, members, this is very straightforward. 3 pretty specific portions that were agreed upon by all 4 parties, and I stand for any questions.
Further discussion on House File 37, Senator Dietzig.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Ingebrigtsen, for the summary of the bill. I am standing in support of the bill, and particularly the extensions for the Environmental and Natural Resource Trust Fund. I am on the LCCMR, Legislative Citizen Commission for Minnesota Resources, with Senator Ingebrigtsen, and we do spend a lot of time reviewing projects, and there are a lot of projects right now that would just not be finished if we didn't do these extensions. And so there's, like Senator Ingebrigtsen said, there's about 50 projects, and these are from all over the state. So there's a Martin Soil and Water Conservation District project that is looking at restoring diverse habitats, and this is in Blue Earth, Brown, Cottonwood, Crow Wing, Faribault, Fremont, Freeborn, Jackson, Lake, LeSueur, Martin, Nicollet, Waseca, and Wantagh counties, and that is Senator Rosen, Senator Jasinski, Senator Frentz, Senator Draheim, Senator Sparks, Senator Bach, Senator Weber, Senator Rude, and Senator Dames District. So these are across the state that this will benefit Minnesota by doing this. The Minnesota Zoo has a project that doesn't just include Senator Clausen's district in Apple Valley. It is doing research on butterfly conservation, and it is also in Senator Weber, Senator Lang, Senator Westrom, Senator Eakin, and Senator Johnson's district. There's a forest management project, again, Crow Wing Soil and Water Conservation District, that will help Senator Gazelka, Senator Rude, and Senator Matthews' districts. There's Otter Tail County Recreational Trail in City of Fergus in Senator Ingebrigtsen's district. And then there's Emerald Ash Borer Biocontrol Phase 3, which will help across the state because we have 88 different communities throughout the state have been impacted by Emerald Ash Borer. So I do encourage a yes vote on this bill because I think it is very important that these projects continue. Would Senator Ingebrigtsen yield for a question?
Senator Ingebrigtsen will yield. Senator Dietzig.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Ingebrigtsen, so this bill has the extensions. We also have the underlying LCCMR package. Has there been any discussion on the status of that package and all of those proposals?
Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you, Mr. President and Senator, for that question. Yes, that has been negotiations for, well, since the session first started. Then, of course, we immediately ran out of time, so there was not a whole lot of time to do hardly anything. And then once we finally got our rules in order where we could actually have meetings, we started negotiating like every other bill here in the Senate with the House members, and we weren't able to come to an agreement. Actually, the members should know that there are 8 legislators on the LCCMR, 6 members that voted in favor of the proposal that came out of LCCMR, and with one amendment taken off, which was wastewater treatment. You probably remember that I brought that bill forward, and it was actually passed before we finished the session. The House, the way I understand it, passed it, but it was not accepted by the Senate because it was done not according to the rules. So yes, we did pass that, but the House failed to act on it, and now I'm led to understand that they're bringing forth another bill with those projects in it. So that's where it's standing right now. But we did not agree. There was one thing that held up the agreement, and it's just never been settled. So, but just understand, Mr. President and Senator Dziedzic and members, that money will drop to the bottom line. It will still be spent. We have until, I believe, June 31st or June, whatever it is, June 31st, 2021, to expend those dollars if we don't during this session. So,
Senator Dibble.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Senator Ingebrigtsen, thank you for that response to Senator Dziedzic's inquiry. I, too, am glad to see the LCCMR extensions in this bill so that a bunch of good work all over the state, and frankly, jobs that are connected with that work don't go away. And as I recall, at the end of session, you're right, you did bring forward the LCCMR package, but it was attached to a larger environment bill that was full of quite a few provisions that had not been agreed to by the House that were very, very controversial policy items. And that was unfortunate because Senator Ingebrigtsen, that's an approximately, $61 million package. And it touches on research and projects and undertakings that would benefit our natural environment and our natural resources in every corner of the state. You know, I'm looking at the Healthy Prairies restoration for $500,000 that has benefits for central Minnesota, northwestern Minnesota, southwestern Minnesota, and southeastern Minnesota, and even a little bit in the metro. Can't get much better than that. And that has jobs attached to it. And you know, the work on our pristine lakes benefiting northeastern Minnesota, central Minnesota, northwestern Minnesota. I understand that there are 250 jobs that we can point to that would be created by this package. And as we're heading into you know, the spring and or into the summer and fall and trying to recover from the pandemic-induced inflation, just like the bonding bill, which I hope we also get passed. Senator Ingebrigtsen, I hope you're committed to bringing forward this LCCMR package and getting that done. There's broad agreement on the major elements of that package, and if we can separate it from the controversial policy items that you were committed to, and I respect you. You have your positions and your values and your perspective, but there are things that we can agree to and we can get done and put 250 Minnesotans to work. So if Senator Ingebrigtsen would yield.
Senator Ingebrigtsen will yield. Senator Dibble.
So Senator Ingebrigtsen, can we look forward to seeing this LCCMR package come forward and not connected to a larger omnibus environment bill that has elements that the House has clearly indicated they won't support?
Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Mr. President and Senator Dibble, thank you for the question and the comments, and I too agree that it really is unfortunate that we aren't able to put these dollars on the ground. As I said earlier, they will eventually get there, but it appears that the administration doesn't want to budge on the thing that we were holding out for, I guess, and that we were asking for. We didn't think it was out of line. But nevertheless, there was no compromise by the administration. I think it was run up that far up the flagpole. We're talking about clean car emissions is what was really holding this thing up. And actually, there was a bill. The original bill was to repeal the rulemaking authority of the administration for clean cars and mirroring that of the California car emissions. In my conversations with the chair and the members of the House, I went from actual repeal to a 4-year moratorium, and I actually dropped down to a 2-year moratorium, still leaving it in law, still leaving it in effect. However, just taking a 2-year break and letting the public participate with the administration with regards to this very, very confusing but unknown rule-making process, frankly, throughout the state of Minnesota, and that's moving towards electric cars. And we can argue all day about someday there's going to be a lot more electric cars on the road. I think there probably is. I won't deny that. But the process in which it's moving forward is something that we strongly disagreed with, and I think we've compromised a lot here in the Senate with regards to that, and that, along with the wastewater treatment, putting that to rest. As you know, last year there was a lawsuit that was threatened with regards to that, so we backed away from that. So it's been pretty much a one-sided negotiation here, and yes, it is unfortunate that we're not able to get that out.
Senator Dibble.
So, thank you, Mr. President. So, members, I will take Senator's longer answer. I can shorten it to one word, which is no. It is apparently not important enough to put 250 Minnesotans to work. It's more important to stand on ceremony and have a debate on an item that actually the administration themselves has said they're delaying by the same amount of time that he held out as his compromise. That rulemaking has been pushed out a number of years. So there is agreement on the table, and the administration has already agreed to push out the clean cars rulemaking. And there will be an election that occurs between now and then, so we could even have a referendum on the subject. And, and whoever comes back as the new legislature can act accordingly, according to how people vote for candidates based on that issue. And so I think it's unfortunate that Senator Ingebretson mentioned two controversial pieces that he insists on attaching to a $62 million package of projects that are ready to go, 250 Minnesotans that we could put to work this year, benefiting Minnesota's environment, Minnesota's natural resources. So thank you for the clarification, Senator Ingebretson.
Senator Ruud.
Thank you, Mr. President. On Monday, I was on a webinar with the MPCA, and I listened to their plans going forward for this year. And at no time did I get the impression that they were slowing down at all. In fact, the impression I got was that they're hurtling forward to get this California emissions adopted as quickly as possible. So I am surprised to learn that they have put out the rulemaking for 2 years, because the webinar that I was on Monday did not indicate that at all. In fact, it appeared that they were speeding it up, and they actually said that they had meetings all over the state of Minnesota, which in a former committee hearing we learned was not the case at all. In fact, they haven't been anywhere within 2.5 hours of my district for meetings anywhere. So I think the California emission standards is something that is being crammed down the throats of Minnesotans without any input. And I think it's very egregious that this body can't have any input. And I think if you ask the citizens in Minnesota, they know nothing about this because it's been behind the radar. And with COVID-19 and not being able to have meetings, I think it's perfectly reasonable to push it out for a 2-year moratorium so that we can have the conversation. Thank you.
Further discussion on House File 37. Senator Dietzich.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, I urge a yes vote on the current bill before us, and I also urge Senator Ingebrigtsen and others to come together and find a resolution to get the packages and the LCCMR that were proposed. Just focus on that because it's 250 jobs. It is projects across the state that will benefit our state. So I encourage you to keep that negotiation open, and hopefully we can pass something before we are out of here in special session. Thank you.
Further discussion on the bill. Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you for that, Senator Dietzich, and we will continue to do that should the administration decide to move forward with our request. And to Senator Dibble's answer really shortly, the answer is no. I'm sorry it took quite so long to get there. However, I have not seen or heard of any letter or seen a letter from Commissioner at the MPCA saying that they would hold off anything at all with regards to the emission standards. As a matter of fact, if we do nothing, I understand they'll be in effect in January. So Minnesotans need to understand what's being done here and what's being basically rammed through without a whole lot of public knowledge. And I think once the public understands that and hears that, in fact, there's some recent polling out showing that 65 to 70%, both Democrats and Republicans, really think that us mirroring California standards is really not the way to go. So if the governor feels that he could give it a couple more years, I don't think that's unreasonable. We'd be more than happy to put those other projects forward. So I look forward to that. With
Further
that, I'd ask
discussion
for
on
a
House
vote.
File 37. Senator Dibble.
Well, I'm curious about Senator Ingebrigtsen's statement that he has no knowledge. The only reason I know that the rules for the clean car standards is being pushed out another year or two is because I was copied on a letter that went to him. I read the letter. It came to me by email, and maybe Senator Ingebrigtsen's email gets monitored by someone else, and he didn't get to see that, or maybe his staff read it and didn't inform him, or maybe he was informed and forgot. But I can assure you that I read correspondence that was addressed to Senator Ingebrigtsen that was copied on me that explained that the statement of need and reasonableness needs to be refined and further developed, and they want to do more. And by the way, I can't let it stand that there's been no public input. There have been meetings all over the state and a lot of publicity and a lot of invitation to public participation about this whole subject, and there will continue to be, and there's a commitment to do more of that. But I get back to my central point. Why are we attaching something that is controversial, that's already resolved? And I have been texting with the administration. They've confirmed and double confirmed that the letter did go to Senator Ingebrigtsen, that the rule writing is being postponed. So it's not even a controversy anymore. So we're going to hold up 61.5 or 62 million bucks for projects that will A, benefit our environment and our natural resources, and put 250 Minnesotans to work. I just don't understand it, but that's not in this bill. This is for a future discussion. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Members, thanks for the great discussion. I would ask for the support of the House File number 37.
The Secretary will give House File 37 its third reading.
House File number 37, a bill for an act relating to the environment.
Third reading. Members, any final discussion on the bill? We're on final passage of House File 37. Seeing no further discussion, the Secretary will take the roll. Members in the retiring room, please come to the chamber to vote. Members in room 303, please come to the chamber to vote. Members in the president's office, please come to the chamber to vote. Members in room 323, please come to the chamber to vote. Members in room 237, please come to the chamber to vote. Members in room 206, please come to the chamber to vote. I will call on Senator Kent to report the votes of the members voting under Rule 40.7. Senator Kent.
Thank you, Mr. President. I report aye for Senator Carlson.
Senator Carlson votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Clausen.
Senator Clausen votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Eaton.
Senator Eaton votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Lane.
Senator Lane votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Latz.
Senator Latz votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Newton.
Senator Newton votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Pappas.
Senator Pappas votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Rest.
Senator Rest votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Sparks.
Senator Sparks votes aye. Senator Kent.
I report aye for Senator Wickland.
Senator Wickland votes aye. I'll call on Senator Jasinski to report the votes of the members voting under Rule 40.7. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Hall votes aye.
Senator Hall votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Nelson votes aye.
Senator Nelson votes aye. All members having voted who have the desire to vote, the Secretary will close the roll. There being 67 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. Senator Rosen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to announce that there is a Senate Finance informational hearing at 3 o'clock. So members, just look at your email for the directions, and we will see you at 3 o'clock for a 1-hour hearing on Senate File 47.
Other announcements before we go to Senator Gazelka to recess. Senator Sengen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Capital Investment Committee will meet on Zoom at 3:30. 3:30 on Zoom.
Senator Kent.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Senate DFL will caucus in about half an hour, so please watch your emails for a Zoom link.
Any other announcements before we go to Senator Gazelka to recess? Senator Gazelka.
Mr. President, members, just a reminder to the Finance Committee that they are going to be meeting at what time again? 3 o'clock, so there may be a conflict there, Senator Kent. But with that, Mr. President, I move that we recess to the call of the President about 5:30, and then after that time, we'll take up the bill that's being discussed in Finance.
Senator Gazelka moves that the Senate recess to the call of the President approximately 5:30 p.m. All those in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Motion prevails. The Senate is in recess.